Osama bin Laden and the dangerous triangle in South America, which is located with Paraguay, Uruguay, and Brazil. And I talked about that in my book in 2005, Are You Ready? Before this was common knowledge. Now, I was talking with Israeli General Shimon Aram on my radio show, and the general warned that Al-Qaeda and other militant Islamic groups were gathering in the dangerous triangle. The dangerous triangle is where Argentina, Paraguay, Brazil intersect, and they generate billions of dollars annually in money laundering, arms sales, drugs, counterfeiting, documentation, and piracy. The dangerous triangle provides a safe environment where terrorists can secure financing, that's wonderful, concealment, and a sympathetic population. General Aram remarked that this dangerous triangle will provide a base of operations to spread terrorism throughout South America and eventually across our borders into the U.S. Now, I wrote this in 2005, and that's happening, well, it's been happening for a while. Hezbollah moving nuclear weapons, sleeper cells, armaments across Mexico, through Tijuana, into San Diego, all across the United States of America. And you should be afraid, very afraid, because the government is concentrating on everything but the big problem, which is nukes in the U.S. Now, it is their goal that the dangerous triangle will provide a base of operations. See, who's directing this? Is it just the terrorists? No, I don't think so. I think it's bigger than the terrorists. I think the people that are directing these operations are huge in comparison to the terrorists. I would say they're the globalists. The dangerous triangle will provide a base of operations to spread terrorism throughout South America and eventually across our borders into the U.S. It's past tense. It's being done now. It is also considered a source of funding for terrorist groups like Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Islamic Jihad. 6 million Muslims live in South American countries, which are active in recruiting and training terrorists. And the ungoverned areas of Suriname, Guyana, Venezuela. Guess who runs Venezuela? Barack Obama's buddy. Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Brazil make it easy for terrorists to transport people and materials throughout those regions. Both Cuba and Venezuela, this name Venezuela is always coming up, and Venezuela is a communist nation with close connections to the White House. And Bernardine Dohrn and Bill Ayers have cooperative agreements with Syria, Libya, and Iran. So there's a nexus, there's a connection between terrorism in South America, which shouldn't surprise us, because when the Nazi higher-ups fled Nazi Germany, with the help of our intelligence agencies, it was called the Rat Patrol, it had other names, but we smuggled huge numbers of Nazis, Nazi families, and Nazi officers into the dangerous triangle. You'll see a lot of the people who live there have blonde hair and blue eyes because they're the descendants of the Nazis. And that's what that movie with Dustin Hoffman, many of you probably forgot it, years ago, was made, The Boys from Brazil. Who were the boys from Brazil? They were the Nazis that had settled in Brazil. And they had diamond trade in Manhattan and elsewhere. So the terrorists can move up through South America into Mexico, which they're doing now, while all the cameras are aimed on you, and across the border into the United States with relative ease. America must... Do you know that they're driving through neighborhoods in San Diego? And because the sex slave trafficking is such a profitable business, they're abducting white little girls from middle-class neighborhoods. They just drive by in these neighborhoods with vans, or teenage girls or preteens, and they disappear forever into the dark, hellish nightmare brothels of South America, Mexico, Arabia, and who knows where else. And God doesn't, we don't even want to think about what's happening to these girls. Okay, so this is the tri-border area and the dangerous triangle. Now, in the next chapter of my book, it deals with the Trilateral Commission, meets on terrorists, Bush and the global game plan. Now, I think it's very important to say that this is part of a global game plan. When we go back to the Fabian socialists about 100 years ago, these were the British intellectuals. I deal with them in all my books. They're the ones that planned the one world government, the one world economic system. They planned Malthusian population control, where you would wipe out millions of people on planet Earth through plagues, through nuclear wars. And British intellectuals like H.G. Wells and Bertrand Russell and others planned for this. Now we're seeing the fruition of this long-term planning in our lifetime. And that's what this long-term plan is all about. It's about global government. It's about the dividing of Israel along globalist lines. And that's why it doesn't really matter who's president, whether it's Bush or whether it's Obama. They both follow the same foreign policy. They're both puppets on the stage, and you don't get to see the puppet masters. If you read my books, you'll find out who the puppet masters are. It's really sad that most Christians don't know who the puppet masters are, because the puppet masters rule their lives. So, these things are happening in our world. And how can I put this? There's a number of things going down. Number one is we're going to have a world currency. I deal with this in my book, The Day the Dollar Died. Soros came out on the BBC and said, look, we're going to devalue the dollar. That means make it worthless. Equalize the playing field. Make all nations equally poor. Get rid of the American and British middle class. Really, you're the target. That's why it's the cover of either Time or Newsweek that ran a story called The Beached American Male. And it was a picture of an American male in a business suit and an attache case washed up on a beach like he was all done with, like an extinct whale. But it's true. Because in this diverse, multicultural world, and I'm not a racist, but the target is the white male. And why is the target the white male? Because you see, for whatever reason, Christian families, many of them white, many of them African American, settled in America. They're patriotic. They're not perfect. They committed a lot of mistakes. But they believe in Christian values, and they have to be destroyed in order to have world government. And so we're moving to the place of the pyramid. The back of the dollar bill, we see the occult pyramid. Underneath the words of the pyramid is the free Mason symbol, Novus Order Seclorum, New Order of the Ages. The base of the pyramid represents the masses, you and me. At the middle, at the top of the base is the Luciferian eye, the all-seeing eye of Lucifer, meaning the illumined ones. And then the tiny pyramid on top of the pyramid, it represents the illumined ones, who represent the scientific elite, who rule the world with absolute power. That's why they keep praising China. That's why George Soros, Rockefeller, Brzezinski, and others have come right out and said, they're not hiding a thing, that China is the model nation for the world. They like the absolute dictatorial control of China, and they like the slave labor productivity of that nation. And guess what? They intend, you see, you've got to quit thinking like a nice, compassionate person. You're not going to understand what's going on in our world if you're thinking like a nice, compassionate American or someone from Britain. You need to think like a dark, soulless person. I'm not asking that you turn into that person in order for you to understand the game plan, the hidden agenda. These people have no soul. Do you understand that? We're dealing with people. Our fight is not against flesh and blood, but it's against principalities and powers and the dark unseen forces of wickedness in heavenly places. And these people don't have a soul. They are demonized, or they're possessed by Satan. Lucifer is their master. Do you understand that? That the elite of our world, I'm not saying every single one of them, but the elite of our world as a group receives communications from spirit guides. I can prove this. I'm not just talking out of the top of my hat. Madame Blavatsky had a spirit guide. Her books were read by Adolf Hitler and Rockefeller. She was a promoter of eugenics, mass population reduction. She promoted the ideas that Margaret Sanger of Planned Parenthood promoted. And so they are organizing the human race, the Georgia Tombstones, along the lines of a New Age humanistic dictatorship. And if we bother to study Bible prophecy, that will be ultimately controlled and ruled by the Antichrist and the false prophet, who is the second beast, who leads a world religion. Now, this world religion is crucial to this dynamic, and that's why I have my new 3D DVD set out, which you need to get. Are you ready for the one world government? It's here. Are you ready for the one world economic system? It's here. And then are you ready for the one world religion? It's here. The one world religion is the ideological glue that's going to make robots out of millions of people, and they're going to believe the lie that there are many ways to God as long as you're sincere. And this opens the door for what the Apostle Paul said was the great apostasy, or the great delusion. It opens the floodgates of the demonic. It brings us to the place which Jesus warned us very clearly. Now track with me, if you will. Jesus says, as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man. As it was in the days of Lot, so it will be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man. Well, what occurred there? There was wickedness and perversion on the earth in both cases, and God judged the earth, in one case with a flood, rescuing a particular family in an ark, Noah. In the other case, it was fire and brimstone. God burnt down Sodom and got Lot out of there with his children. Now, but the message is deeper than that, because it deals with genetics. You say, well, what do you mean it deals with genetics? The Bible is scientific. It's not this spiritual Sunday school thing you've been taught it to believe. It's scientific. It deals with DNA and genetics hundreds of thousands of years before mankind even understood that. Now, here's the deal. When we go back to the Garden of Eden, we discover that Eden was paradise. Man lived forever. Man was genetically pure. There was no diseases, no dysfunctional families, no ecological problems. And man walked in intimacy with God and worshipped him and obeyed the word of the Lord. Now the serpent snuck in there, being Lucifer, and seduced Adam and Eve, and basically got